Hey guys, welcome back. This is Eric Smith, contributor on the Five Reasons Sports Network, also a co-host of the Scouting Combine with Hassan Patel. And on this video, we're going to review my Week 12 Miami Dolphins offensive line grades against the New England Patriots. This game, in a lot of ways, was more about Tua and his ability to efficiently carve up a defense. The line wasn't asked to do a lot. I do give McDaniel credit for calling a good game. He did a good job of not abandoning the run, even though the chunk plays weren't there. You know, the ratio of outside zone runs that he used was pretty on par with what it has been in previous weeks. And this isn't necessarily a negative on the offensive line, as much as I felt like it was McDaniel getting back to the bread and butter of the offense in what was expected to be a win for Miami. And, they were just trying to put the Patriots to bed before cruising to the Packers on a short week, and they did a good job of doing that. Obviously, Tua had to return after the Skylar Thompson and Jalen Wright, fumbled exchange. But even after that, they did a good job of playing very conservative, efficient football throughout the entire game yesterday. All right, as you can see, the overall offensive line grade for this week was higher than what the season average has been. Um, I felt like the actual performance may have been closer to average to a little below average. A lot of the stuff they did this week in terms of the quick passing game, the RPOs, and being heavier on screens than they were in previous weeks, those are all things that when you're grading the offensive lineman on a per snap basis, they're not asking them to do as much. So the line is, naturally going to grade better on those plays than if they were really leaning on the offensive line more than what they did again in the game against the Patriots. So again, this isn't a negative against the offensive line, but I do feel like this grade may be inflated a little more than what the actual performance was, just based on what the offensive line was asked to do this week. All right, so once again, we had the five starters that we've had minus Jackson being out. Terron Armstead did leave later in the game, but that was not injury related. That was just due to the score of the game and trying to get Patrick Paul some more game snaps as well. And our first individual grade, and as usual, we're going to go from lowest to highest. Lowest grade this week was Patrick Paul. And I felt that he came in and did okay. This is about where he graded out in his game earlier this season, as you can see. Only played a total of 15 snaps. I think he had one grade that I gave as a 0 for the play, and another where I gave as a half credit play. Had he played more snaps, then it's definitely real. Not out of the question to see this grade increase just based on volume and the way that the scores average out. But based on what he did yesterday in those 15 snaps, his grade comes out to a 7.81 this week. All right, so I just pulled one play for Patrick Paul, and this is going to be a full slide protection to the left side here, and pretty easy to see who each lineman is going to be accountable for off the snap. And the Patriots did a good job of kind of dictating protections, and this was another case of that. And what you're going to get with this is that this defensive back here, who's kind of creeping around the box, is going to come off the edge, and he's going to come unblocked, right? So as this play starts here, you can see him creeping up, and the entire line shifting to the left. Going to get a unblocked pressure and eventually a sack here. Would have liked to see Tua throw that away, but the reason that we're looking at this play is that you got Patrick Paul here, and off the snap, he's going to set to the outside. His defender is leaving, right? So he doesn't have to get too wide. So now he's helping out, right? And typically when you see this type of protection, everything kind of goes to the left here and the quarterback stays in the pocket. But because of this unblocked pressure, Tua is going to scramble out to the left. And, just a rookie type mistake here that Patrick Paul just it doesn't have a feel of when to let go on this play. Once that defender's outside the frame of the body, official has a clear view right there, and that defender's throwing his hand up, that's going to be called almost every time. So, not a awful rep here from Paul, but, just stuff that's going to come with experience in terms of knowing when to give up on that block. Coming back to the grades, so our lowest graded starter of the week was actually Aaron Brewer, and this was a little better than his performance last week, but as you can see is still pretty far off from his season average. In a lot of ways, the Patriots did stuff similar to what the Raiders did, where they used Devon Godchaux to challenge Brewer, and they had some success with that. That was certainly an issue in the run game to an extent, but at the same time, similar to the way that the Raiders ended up with that. If you're going to commit to putting a guy on the inside and trying to make life tough on Aaron Brewer because he struggles with the power, then that inherently is going to open other stuff up. And this week, that was the screen game, and that was, the quick passing game and stuff like that. So, not a bad grade by any means from Brewer here, but not what we've come to expect from him. But I also am not concerned with this because I know that, when a team does this type of stuff and when they do the things that are going to make Brewer struggle, then the offense has plenty of other stuff that they can get to that that opens up. All right, so I got two plays here for Brewer, and both of them are kind of highlighting the stuff this offense can get to when they can't run to the inside. So this first one is just going to be what's called a balloon route, or an escort route is another thing you've heard that referred to as, and sometimes you'll see a tight end or a fullback getting out here in front of Achane and leading this route. But on this play, you're going to see that it's actually Aaron Brewer from the center position that, as this protection develops, right, it's big on big across there, but Brewer is uncovered, so he leaks out, and he does a really good job of not getting downfield until the right time. Like, they can only get downfield about a yard, right? So when you're looking at the 10-yard line here, that's where Brewer has to wait until Achane catches that ball. So as he snaps the ball here, right, he navigates through there, never crosses that line. The timing on this is so perfect that, as soon as that ball is caught, Brewer is now getting upfield. And obviously doesn't get, much of a block there, but just his presence is going to affect the angle that they can take. And there's not many linemen and not many centers in the league that are going to be able to leak out there and to lead an outside swing pass. And similar idea here. So this is going to be the counter reverse to Jalen Wright. The Dolphins call this dope. And, same idea here, that if you want to limit stuff to the inside, right, they're going to fake the dive to Malik Washington, right, which gets linebackers stepping up for God knows why, right? But they do, and then you get the no-look toss there. But what we're really highlighting here is that Aaron Brewer is getting, he's 10 yards downfield when he makes contact with that defensive back, and he's driving him another 10, 15 yards downfield. And that's not easy to do for an offensive lineman to locate and latch on to a defensive back and to continue to get that push in the secondary. All right, our next lowest graded player is going to be Kendall Lamb, coming in at 8.59, and as you can see, that's right on point for what the overall offensive line grade was for this week. And in a lot of ways, Kendall Lamb kind of represented, what I was saying earlier about the way that this line was protected. He wasn't asked to do a lot, and you're going to see in some of the clips that even though Kendall Lamb is grading out well in this game, there are certainly still spots where Austin Jackson's missing in this offense. All right, so 3 videos here for Kendall Lamb. First one here is going to be an outside zone to the right. This was pretty early in the game, if I remember correctly. And here at right tackle, and you can see that as he gets off the ball, right, the technique is all there, but the pop that Austin Jackson has off the ball is just missing, right? We're used to seeing Austin Jackson being able to make that contact and immediately toss that guy outside the hash marks if we're looking here. Not a great block by Brewer either on this play, but we could get by with that earlier in the season because we'd get Austin Jackson blowing this guy out, Liam climbing to this linebacker, and that lane opening up right in there instead of Achane cutting back into traffic. So just an example of again this isn't a great block by Brewer, but it's one that we could get by with earlier in the season because of the difference that Austin Jackson made in the run game. Another outside zone to the right here, and on this one you're going to see Lamb trying to get out here to number 33, and as he comes off the ball, 33 slants inside, you can see that the feet kind of stop, and just looking at the balance that Kendall Lamb loses there, right? And that balance obviously, slows down his momentum, and he's not able to get any kind of movement there, get a decent block from Ingold there. You'd like to see that defender stay to the outside, but usually when a defender ends up on the ground, you're doing pretty decent. But because Lamb isn't able to swing his hips around and seal that defender inside, this ends up as a short gain on something that could have been a much better play with a better performance from Lamb on that play. And then last one here for Lamb, this is going to be a screen to the right. And this still ends up being a good play, but Lamb's guy is able to chase down and make that tackle. And, Armstead is a great player to watch in these type of plays, obviously not on this one, but when they run those screen plays to the left, he does such a good job of getting over top of that defender right away and making that defender chase around this way instead of being able to cross his face. And, Lamb is a okay athlete when it comes to NFL offensive tackles, but when you get the types of tackles like Terron Armstead, Kendall Lamb, and really even Patrick Paul that they pursue in this offense, you see those guys that are able to get over top of that block and to make that player, even though they're not sealing him or getting their hands on him, they're still able to negate that player from the play completely that Kendall Lamb was not able to do there. And then we got Rob Jones also coming in at a 8.59, which is two players that graded right at average. Same as across the board. Not a great game from Rob Jones here. Had some bad losses, but was consistent overall and wasn't asked to do a ton of different things. All right, so just a quick one for Jones here. Got him lined up here at left guard, and the Patriots did a good job of dictating protection that the Dolphins were going to be in a lot of ways they are helping out Lamb. So I think the Patriots could kind of predict here that Brewer is going to help out to the right side, and that they're helping the Dolphins are giving Armstead a little bit of help with Janu Smith out here, but that Armstead is going way out there to try to get number 33, and that's going to kind of leave Rob Jones on an island here versus number 99, and that's not a favorable position for the Dolphins to be in, right? You can see that Armstead gives him a little help, but Armstead really has to end up out there, and that leaves Jones with all this space that he has to be able to cover, and as you can see, he doesn't do a good job of that and gives up the pressure there. Tua does a good job of seeing it and being able to evade and get out of the pocket, right? But this is still, right, even though it's not a sack or doesn't end up as an interception, this is still a play that's going to grade as a 0 for Rob Jones this week. All right, we got two more players to go, and the next one is going to be Liam Ikenberg checking in a 8.72. And I've talked before about the goal in this grading system seems to be above a 8.0 is really where you want to see the offensive line. And Liam Eichenberg has quietly been having a really good season. Um, you know, 5 out of the last 6 weeks he's been above that 8.0 mark, and he's only had one game all year where he dropped below a 7, which was actually the last game against the Patriots. So you can see that, when he's still improving, right? Liam is never going to be a great player, but he continues to improve. And I think he's starting to get a little respect from the fan base. He was never as bad as, he was made out to be. Certainly not a player that I ever would have necessarily looked to cut. But, now I think that he's starting to turn the tide of that opinion to where he's, a solid interior player in this offense. All right, looking at the film for Liam. So this one here, it's going to be a play that it looks like Liam is giving up a pressure on the play, and two is able to get out of the pocket and get rid of that. But when you slow this play down and start, looking at the feet and looking where things went wrong, you're going to see that it wasn't a technique thing at all. Maybe you could say that he's a little wide with his feet there, but if you look here, right, his feet are getting tangled up with Kendall Lamb, and that's what makes him lose balance. And, that's what ends up with the pressure more so than Liam losing. And if you take that even a step further, it wasn't even necessarily Lamb that got too far over. It was, them actually trying to give Kendall Lamb some help here, and Janu Smith knocking that defender over, and that's what ended up tying those two up. I mean, it is what it is. It's unfortunate, right? But had this turned into a sack, this would have been, the timeline blowing up that, Liam sucks again. But, when you really look at it, it's not, Liam sucking at all in this case. It's just a unfortunate tie-up of their feet that results in a ugly looking pressure. And then the other one for Liam here, like I said, he's still not a perfect prospect. Could he be upgraded? Absolutely. And this is, one of those scenarios where we're asking him to reach out to a 4-eye defensive tackle here and to either seal him to the inside or get some penetration or get some movement vertically on him. And given the backfield motion here, this is a play that is really designed to get outside more. This is just outside zone, but you can see that Julian Hill is kicking that defender out versus getting outside of him. And not to say that that's right or wrong. That's something for the position room to decide, right? But had Liam been able to either get his hips around and set that anchor or create some vertical movement, right, then you still have that opportunity where you can see that Achane is reading Julian Hill's block here. Achane wants to cut this up based on what he's seeing, but that opportunity just isn't there because of, how much ground Liam gives up on this play. All right, and then obviously our highest grade of the player of this week is going to be Terron Armstead, coming in a really good 9.42. Obviously a really good day. I think that I only had him marked down for one half-graded play all day. Again, not asked to do a lot in this game, but everything that he was asked to do, he did with flying colors, and that's not unusual for Terron Armstead by any means. All right, so this one here I wanted to throw in here. This is an example of a play that I wouldn't even grade Terron Armstead on. So he's here at left tackle. This is going to be a screen to the left. And you can see that on the surface, looks like he, is slow to get there and whiffs on that block. But if you watch the way that the Patriots defense plays this, this is the player that Terron Armstead is blocking here. And, really good game planning by the Patriots that, something happens here that when Tyreek goes in that little shuffle type motion, that right now they are adjusting. This defender is going to crash, and he is on a full sprint to Tyreek out there right away. So he can see that play. There was some sort of tell there. So from a grading perspective, this is a play that, asking Armstead, right, look at where Armstead is starting from. This defender's already on a full sprint towards Tyreek, and we're asking Armstead to get out there to make that block. That's just not something that's ever going to happen. Maybe you get lucky enough that, the angles work out, that Tyreek's going to the inside, and, Armstead just happens to run into him. But, this just is a play that, in my opinion, I'm not going to say that Armstead did his job and give him credit for the play, but I'm also not going to mark him negatively. So this is an example of a play. Sometimes with the snap counts in my grades, you'll see that even if the same 5 offensive linemen play the entire game, there are certain plays I look at and I just don't feel are fair to include in the grading to, give the lineman a positive or a negative impact on their grade from it. And this is just one of those examples. All right, so that's it for the grading portion of this video. As you can see, I mentioned earlier about the 8.0 being where we want to see these players, and you can see that all of the starters are above that mark. But like I have said a couple of times in this video now, part of that reason is the way the game plan was designed, and that this offensive line wasn't asked to do a lot in this game, but everything that they were asked to do, they passed with flying colors. So thanks for watching this far. If you want to stick around a little longer, we're going to go through a few other plays, just, some random stuff that I pulled that I felt was good to review in these type of videos. All right, first one they're going to check out here, this is going to be one of those, not the offensive line's fault type deals. And, I get that Julian Hill is, the new Liam Ikenberg in terms of, as soon as he messes up, that the fans are going to go crazy on social media. And he definitely is not a perfect player by any means, but he also does stuff that the other tight ends on this roster just can't do. So you're stuck with Julian Hill for the remainder of the season, but it's definitely something that I would look to upgrade in the offseason, in the sense that I would move on from Durham Smythe and I would look to bring in a tight end similar to Julian Hill that would bump him down to a tight end 2 type of role with somebody who's more consistent as a blocker. But on this particular play, you can see this is just outside zone to the left. And, in this case, right, they are basically telling Julian Hill he's got that edge defender, because everybody else is going to work up from here. You're going to get Armstead working up to this linebacker. You're going to get the combination block here between Jones and Brewer working up to the backside linebacker. And, as Hill is coming in motion here, he can either get his head to the outside and Achane's going to take that around the edge, or get his head to the inside and kick that out. And you can see that his initial position has that head to the inside, so Achane is reading to cut that up, but Julian Hill's not able to maintain that position and ends up in a tackle for a short gain. So, we've reviewed some of these in past videos, but, when you talk about issues in the run game, it doesn't always come down to just those 5 offensive linemen. A lot of times it's the other players that are part of the run blocking scheme outside of those 5 guys. And another one here, this is going to be the counter reverse to Jonnu Smith. And the reason I wanted to include this was that earlier in this video, we looked at Aaron Brewer and talked about the timing and coordination needed on that balloon type route, but there's still some, minor hiccups in terms of communication. And on this one, you're going to see that Julian Hill and Aaron Brewer are both getting out here to the outside, and certainly a mix-up as to who has number 48. And I think what happens here is that, the 2 defenders that they are accountable for are going to be number 0 and number 48. And I think what happens here is that when you're looking at pre-snap reads, right, I think that Julian Hill, this is number 1, and that's where Julian Hill's going. And that Aaron Brewer would have number 2 that's not going to be blocked here, and that's going to be number 48. But as they come around the edge here, you can see that these 2 defenders switch positions. right? And so when you're using a number system to block this, right, a 1 and a 2, and they switch, right, then you have to understand how you're going to handle that, right? I think that in this case that Brewer felt that they were switching those, and that 48's the new number 1, and that Julian Hill would pick him up and Brewer would go to 0. But based on the way that Julian Hill is going for it, it certainly seems the opposite, that he thought they were still sticking with who they had, and that maybe he was going to slow down and help Brewer out, but then he was going to climb to the original number 1 and expect Janu to get to the outside there. So I just thought this was a good rep to show that there's still some improvements to happen in terms of the communication on this offense, and none of it really matters out there because 53 makes a great play there. That I think that Smythe and Waddle here, I think we're supposed to combo to the backside linebacker here. I think that once they seal 99, rather than leaving 2 guys on there, I think one was supposed to drop off to number 53, who ends up making a great play. But, just an X's and O's type thing that I thought would be interesting to talk through on this video. All right, just a couple more here before we wrap up this week's video. So the next 3 here, the last 3 that we have, are going to be these interior linemen finding work in the pass game and really, getting a slab of ribs is what you'll hear this referred to. And on the first one here, we're going to have Liam Ikenberg. So he's helping Kendall Lamb here briefly, right? But he can see that guy's committing way outside, and you can see his eyes flipping around right away. And next thing you know, he's going to come flying through and just go right through the ribs of Godshall there. And you love to see that because what the effect that has for later in the game. Because as soon as this happens, right now, Godshall has to be thinking every time that he's trying to bull rush the smaller Aaron Brewer, right? Is there going to be somebody coming to just take out those ribs? And that it's something that linemen think about. So it's nice to see the Dolphins offensive linemen kind of adding that layer to the pass protection where, even if a defender is getting pressure, he's got to be thinking about, is there somebody coming to take out my exposed ribs? Next play here is going to be similar idea. So this is, going to be the touchdown pass screen to Devon Achane here. And I posted this one on Twitter yesterday as well. But as you see this play develop and everybody starts to get out here, right, Armstead's going to go to 23. Jones is going to kind of miss 21 a little bit here, right? But you got your cleanup guy coming here, right? And he just lights him up. And that, love to see that, right? He could just get out here and say, okay, that's taken care of. I'm going to, I don't have to block anybody. But that's just not Aaron Brewer's style. And he just lights this guy up. And, then we end up scoring off the block from, well, don't necessarily want to call it a block, right? But Liam's getting out there and getting in the way. And that's all you need to do is get in the way. But, it's obviously more fun when you see not just getting in the way, but completely obliterating that defender. And then last one here, still going to be same ideas. Going to be Rob Jones on this one on the left side, right? So there he is. He's helping Brewer, making sure that everything's good there. He can feel that, they're not continuing to lose ground. All right, now it's time to try to go find some ribs. And you see the way that this defender is extended on Terron Armstead. Not that Armstead needs help, but, if he's going to leave his ribs open, well, time to go collect them. Right? And you can see there that Jones does a good job of running through, getting that forearm through the ribs, ending up with that defender on the ground. So now, right, next time that defender is rushing Armstead, same idea. He's got to think about, is there going to be somebody coming and taking a shot at my ribs? All right, that's going to wrap it up for this week of grades and film review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Got a short week coming up with the Packers I don't know if there's anybody that actually sits and waits for these to come out, but just as a heads up, next week's grades probably won't come out until the beginning of next week because I will be out of town during the game and probably not have an opportunity to go through and do the grades and the video. But hope you guys have a great holiday. Looking forward to the Dolphins having an opportunity to, kill some narratives this week, and hopefully we come back next week talking about another solid performance from the Dolphins offensive line. Thanks again. Talk to you guys later.